Good morning. I'm Maria Essig, and I'm going to talk to you today about what happens when a company makes a fundamental change that affects their very large repository of legacy documents. And I'm going to offer to let you ask questions as I go along, so that's fine. If you want to ask a question as I go along, that'd be great. So let's start with the company. The company is Healthwise, where we are today. Healthwise is a nonprofit that was established in 1975, and its mission is to help people make better health decisions. And in line with that mission, we produce evidence-based consumer health information that's in plain language and allows people to make better health decisions when they need to. And in line with that, we make web-based health products and patient instruction handouts. For example, you go to the doctor and you've been diagnosed with some infection, and he may give you a patient handout from Healthwise that tells you how to take care of yourself at home, and then what to do if you think you may need to call the doctor, when to call the doctor. We make a symptom checker. You have a symptom, you can go and get your symptoms checked. You can decide, go through kind of like a protocol to see whether you need to call 911, whether it's that serious or whether it's something more minor, something you can take care of at home. Decision aids, for example, should my child have a tonsillectomy is one of our decision aids. Should I get a pacemaker installed is another decision aid. And we're developing shared decision-making campaigns. For example, during pregnancy, a woman has to make a lot of decisions. Should I have genetic testing early in pregnancy, and those kind of decisions. And so we have a campaign that helps a woman as she goes along in pregnancy make the decisions she needs to make at that point in her pregnancy. So when Healthwise started in 1975, we made books. We made self-care books, the Healthwise Handbook, Healthwise for Life. And then we started moving into web-based products. But it was still a kind of a print model, right? It was just sort of book topics presented digitally on the web. And now we're moving into a more modern, modular, digital presentation of our products that's more nimble and more versatile. And who am I? So I'm Maria Essig. I'm the content technical manager, the technical manager for our content development team. I've been at Healthwise 15 years, and I'm a former content developer who now helps our medical writers and what we call our medical content specialists. Those are the people that are responsible for maintaining the accuracy of our medical information. I help them keep working. I conduct training for content developers and for other people on the team who need to use our content. And I work with engineering, work really closely with our engineering team to develop and implement tools, establish best practices for working in our repositories, troubleshoot problems, and try and improve process efficiency for both content developers and for anyone else who needs to use our repository. So let's go on to the challenge that Healthwise faced. To convert about 40,000 pages of digital consumer health information to structured content. Now, when I say that we had unstructured content to structured content, it really wasn't totally unstructured. It was kind of semi-structured, right? It was still this print model that was in digital form. But we wanted to take it a step further and make it more nimble, break our content into smaller chunks that were more accessible. And so let's talk about how we did that, the conversion. So right now, or when we started this process, we have a lot of very large documents in our current repository. For example, we have a malaria topic. It's got 12 sections. And if you want to find out what the symptoms of malaria are, you have to navigate through this large document to find just the symptoms of malaria. And maybe you just want the symptoms of recurrent malaria instead of the symptoms of acute initial malaria. And that might even be more difficult to find. Heart failure, we have a very large heart failure topic. It has 14 sections. So if you want to find maybe someone's personal story about how they've dealt with heart failure, you have to navigate through this very large topic to find it. So we want to take these large documents and break them up into small focused chunks of content that just answer one question. What are the symptoms of malaria? Or what is heart failure? Or what are the treatments for heart failure? Or what are the medications for heart failure? Or what are the procedures? What are the tests for heart failure? And then we repeat language. We have multiple products. So we may have language about heart failure in a patient instruction handout, or we may have information about heart failure in a decision aid, or in just a very large or major heart failure topic. And we say the same thing over and over and over again. And if that thing that we say over and over again changes, we need to change it in every place we mention it. Well, we don't want to do that. We want to reuse topics. This new model will allow us to reuse topics. Wherever we talk about what is heart failure, we talk about it in this one little chunk, and we just place that chunk wherever we want. And we have a lot of content developers. We have about 35 content developers. And it's hard to keep a consistent voice among so many content developers. So we're trying to move toward a more structured way to have people develop content so that they speak in a more consistent voice. And we have relatively loose formats. Some of our content, some of our documents have a rigid outline, and some of them don't. Some of them you just don't know what to expect when you get it, because the outline changes from topic to topic, condition to condition. We're trying to tighten that up a little bit more so that these smaller chunks are really highly formatted, so that you know what to expect when you get one. And we have some metadata. We have actually quite a bit of metadata on our content right now, but we had to add additional metadata to help us organize the content for users within the company and without, and to search both within and without. And in the past, content development was kind of siloed. We had pretty well-defined roles. But now we're finding, as content development processes become more technical, the tools are becoming more technical, there's a lot of overlap. I work so closely with engineering because they have to understand how content developers work so they can help build tools that make it more efficient. And content developers have to understand what their content is going to be used for, and how it's going to be used, and how it's going to be published, and how it's going to be searched for, so that they can develop content that fits all the needs of all the downstream users. And so what do we use as our tool? The tool is DITA. As Chris Hess mentioned this morning, we're converting our content into DITA. DITA stands for Darwin Information Typing Architecture, and it's an XML standard. So it's an XML markup that's standardized, but it also allows for specialization of topic type and tagging elements. And if you're wondering who's behind here, this is DITA Von Teese, and we found that if you Google DITA, just DITA, D-I-T-A, or especially if you Google DITA images, all you get are images of DITA Von Teese, who's a stripper in New York. And this is one of the few pictures I could actually show. A burlesque, right, right. So DITA Von Teese. And so it's an XML standard, but it also allows specialization of topic type and tagging elements. It facilitates reuse mechanisms. So there are several ways that you can reuse content when you put it into DITA. You can reuse the small chunks themselves and put them into maps. You can assemble them into maps, which the output of is a document, or I think we're calling it an article. Or you can actually store content in a warehouse topic or a library topic, and then you can just refer to it in some of your other smaller topics, so that it can only be changed here and it's referenced somewhere else, which is really handy. So we're planning on using some of our when to call a doctor content because we want to really standardize that. We want to say when to, like if you have symptoms of a heart attack and you need to call 911 for them, we want to standardize that and not allow content developers to change it because it's so important. It's our most important information is to tell people when to call a doctor, when to call 911, what's an emergency and what's not. And we want to lock that down a little bit so that not everyone can change it. The other good thing about it is it accommodates accessibility. So you can create accessible content for visually impaired people. And here's just an example, and I won't go into a lot of detail on this, but this is one of our data topics. It's a slideshow. So we have standard, Chris Hess talked about all of our different data topic types, and this is one, it's a slideshow. And so it has places for semantic, it provides semantic meaning for things like there's prerequisites, there's context for the slideshow, and this is actually one of our specialized topics types. So out of the box data has a topic, a task, and a reference type topics, but we have a lot more than that. So this is a slideshow, an HW slideshow, which is our specialized topic. Specialization allows us to constrain different areas. So in our slideshow, we can constrain what kind of elements we allow, and that really helps content developers because they're not choosing from a list of 30 different tags they can use in a certain place. They're only choosing from a list of 4, which is the ones we want them to use. And it allows specialized elements. So here, there's some metadata in here. Which is reading level. We have to keep track of our reading level. We try and keep our reading level down because we're writing medical information or health information for the consumer. Here's a specialized element that allows constraining. And here's some more specialized elements. So instead of just having italics and bold, which doesn't give you any information about why you're italicizing something or bolding something, we have gotten rid of italics and bold altogether, just the generic terms. And now you have to say why you want to bold something or why you want to italicize it. So there's now semantic meaning in these tags. So now we have an HW genus species. So if you want to italicize something because it's a genus species name, then we can do that. If you want to emphasize something, it'll put it in bold. But you have to say why you want to do something. If you want to highlight something like here to say that, oh, I've changed this, and that's how we mark our changes as we revise topics, we have what's called HW touch-up, which puts it in gray highlight. And here's another constraint. So in this info tag here, we can constrain what's in a paragraph tag. And all we allow, there's like 4 things we allow inside this info tag. But if you go to the out of the box data, it allows a lot more things like figure, file path, message block, table, and we don't allow any of that because we've constrained it out. So how did Healthwise approach this daunting task in converting those thousands of legacy documents into data? We followed a 2-prong approach. So path A, we call our curated content or our kind of artisanal content, and path B is what we call bursted content. The curated content was done by hand. We had content developers look through our existing documents, pick out the best way we talk about the symptoms of heart failure or heart failure triggers, and then put it into data topics with the appropriate metadata. So that was our curated content. Our path B bursted content was we took our more rigid document types, like our medical test topic. It has a rigid outline and it requires exactly this many sections, and they're always the same sections. Those were ripe for being able to burst into data. So each section became one data topic. Because we knew what was going to be in it. We knew like the how to prepare section was going to tell you how to prepare. And so we could programmatically create data topics out of our documents that exist. So let's take a walk down path A. So for path A, we had content developers working together to find the best content and write it in the what everyone agreed on was the best language. And then it was manually converted into the XML standard markup into DITA through what we call the DITA factory. We had people who just essentially copying and pasting. While they were doing that, they were looking for reuse opportunities, but we didn't do a lot except for our when to call content was reused. And the metadata that we needed to add was manually entered as people created our topics. And the content developers had to follow guidelines that were established by by EIG, our editorial guidelines group. And they've done a good job is to provide guidance on things like titling conventions for different topic types so that everybody is working off the same page. And from the technical team that helps to use the proper use, kind of best practices for tagging use in DITA, and the best coming to some consistency on topic type use. And then the people who were doing this work provided feedback on what worked and what didn't, because we iterated and we're continuing to iterate, trying to improve our process. And we may make a decision and go down the road a little way and realize it's not really working for everything we need to do, and then we go back and reconsider that. And so this is just a slide that shows we have all these documents of heart failure. I think we have 92 of them, 92 documents that have heart failure in the title. And we selected essential aspects of the heart failure condition, like what is it and how is it diagnosed, and when should you call a doctor if you have it, and what can you do for it at home, and what are the symptoms. And then we mined these documents to pick out the best language to put in each of these DITA topics. So maybe for what is heart failure, we pulled language from heart failure types in the heart failure main topic. And then we pulled information from these other ones from multiple documents to create the best topic on what is heart failure that we can reuse everywhere. And the curated content, again here, what I'm trying to show here is you can see this kind of yellow area here. The language in this big document, this heart failure document that's 14 sections, here's all the sections here, 14 sections long. This language was used to make this DITA topic here. And then in here, this language was used in here to create this part of this heart failure topic. And you can see in this heart failure topic, this is grayed out. And this graying out means that it's just referenced here. It doesn't actually live here, just reference. And you can't change it in this DITA topic. You can only change it in the original topic where it actually lives. So path B, let's go on to path B, the bursted content. So as I said before, we selected existing documents with a rigid outline. So medical test topics was one. Some were even easier than that, like we had definitions. They just have one section. So it's a one-to-one, one definition in our present system becomes one DITA topic. That's a definition in DITA. And then those were programmatically broken up. I would write an algorithm for the programmer to say, oh, this section we want to have the topic overview has this aspect and this metadata associated with it. The titling convention should be this, and then the programmer made it happen. One DITA section became, one document section became one DITA topic. And the metadata was applied programmatically. So some of the metadata, like the reviewers, the medical reviewers who reviewed this, like a medical test topic, calcium in blood. We have a calcium in blood test topic or test document. And so the reviewer who reviewed that document, that reviewer name would go on all of the topics that resulted from it. But some of the metadata, was just taken from the entire document, and some of the metadata was individualized to the individual topic. And some prep work and cleanup is required for this. So prep work is just getting rid of elements we don't allow anymore that don't exist in DITA, but do exist in XML because our present stuff is in XML. And then cleanup work are things like like in the titling conventions, because the titles are being created programmatically, you may get an, you know, an A when you need an and or something like that. So here's a bursted content example. We have calcium in blood, and you can see the outline there, test overview, why it is done, how to prepare, how it is done, how it feels, risks, results, and what affects the test. We also have a what to think about section. We decided to get rid of it. We can't assign a particular aspect to it because it's just a grab bag of information. So we just got rid of it. And so part of the preparation work of this was doing an analysis of the kinds of information that was in what to think about, and if it was important to keep moving it into another section that we would retain. And so that was just converted programmatically to these data topics, one for each section. And the numbers here, how is blood taken from a vein? You notice it's not how is a calcium in blood test done, but it's because this procedure, how blood is taken from a vein, is reused in 46 different documents. We just create one, and now instead of having 46 different procedures that are exactly the same, like exactly the same. So if it ever changes, we have to change it in 46 places. We now have to change it in one. How does having blood drawn from a vein feel? We use this in 100 places. We use this in 80. So this just goes to show you the power of data when it comes to reuse. And then here's an example. So you can see that big document, calcium in blood, was converted into, these are some of the data topics it was converted into. So I have this, Theodore Roethke's one of my favorite poets. I have this quote, "Over every mountain there's a path, although it may not be seen from the valley." And boy, that's been true over the last 3 years. We've moved forward, not sure whether we were on the right path, and we've had to make a lot of course corrections, but we're getting there, and we're gaining more efficiencies as we go along. People are starting to kind of migrate into their kind of realms of decision-making ability, and we're making a lot of more rapid progress now. And I have questions, and I forgot to mention, I'm also a big snake fan, so which is hence the snakes. This is my albino king snake Blanco. So. Any questions?
So it sounds like you have a content background. So you've been working with the developers at Healthwise to get the tech stuff, or do you have a tech background too?
No, my training and education is in chemistry, but I worked as a content developer. I worked as a chemist for a while, but I worked as a medical writer, a medical reporter for a long time, and so I kind of understand what content developers need, and I'm trying to maintain a connection to that as I move into more of a technical area. But so I kind of crossed the borderline. I'm in the Venn diagram. I'm kind of in the middle.
Thank you, first of all. That was, yeah, I've lived through that experience as well, with the e-learning paradigm shift, going away from print-based correspondence course material through to then the sort of the digitization, and then that whole paradigm shift about how people learn online. And I saw a lot of parallels with that. So, you know, thanks. It was, you know, it had a lot of applications. I'm just curious about, with the Healthwise model of you guys basically providing this content to consumers, not necessarily the end users who read it, but to health providers and so on. What's been their sort of response to, you know, your sort of the two-prong approach, you know, in terms of?
They don't know about it yet, right? I mean, we have at least one client that's going to be an early adopter, that will try and incorporate our content in this way, but we're not to the place where we've rolled it out yet. And if, I don't know, Katie or Judy might want to say more about that.
Yeah, just one thing too about the two-prong approach. I mean, I think our hope is that will be invisible at the end of this. That's an internal approach. The content should come out the same. We're only choosing things for the path B bursting work that really work that way. So that's my take on that. I don't know.
I'm also with Healthwise. Nice job, Maria. Thank you. Just to also clarify that our next step will be to rebuild some of our legacy content and products with the data structures using the maps that Maria and Chris have referenced. And then we'll also make the data structures available to clients who would like to design their own experiences more flexibly. So we also expect to have both outputs. The rebuilding of existing content that you find on Healthwise, in Healthwise applications today, and then also making the smaller modular pieces available for flexible design.
Other questions?
All right. Thanks, Maria. So lunch should be here momentarily. We should give away some more stuff. Do you want somebody else to draw? All right. We need a volunteer from the audience. David, you look very nice. Will you draw names?
Does this disqualify?
No.
Okay.
So, David, who are you?
I'm David Lentz. I work at Boise State University, supervising the web and mobile developers.
Right on. All right. What should we give away?
Oh.
Maybe a t-shirt? Start there. Okay. Wendy Fox gets a t-shirt. All right. Journal-y thingy? This is an O'Reilly journal-y thingy. Jason Smith, are you here yet? I haven't seen a Jason Smith. Okay, back in the box.
Oh. Do over.
Tamara Shores. Ooh. All right. You're not too bad this, David. Thanks for doing it. Okay. Another journaly thingy. Bill Beatty, are you here? This one for, okay. All right, we can keep going. David Lentz. Is that self-referential right there? Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
And how about 2 polar bear books? Paul King. Little Peter Morville action. All right. And Christine Maldonado. So you can read them together, and you can ask them why they can read them together. Did we give away 2? We did. I guess we're done. All right. Mix, mingle, and I'll go look for pizza. After lunch, come back here by 1, and we have really different stuff. We have cognitive computing, and then we're going to beam in Boston, and then Carl is going to close us down with world model. So, and then adult beverages. And Annette is going to talk about the attraction of atomic design.